We are Cactus Wrestling. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss out on future videos.
Which wrestler had the best season to not win a national title? There's a few that come to mind, but we're going to focus on one guy in particular today. Iowa State fans, David Carr. And this is going to be interesting because there's actually two occasions in which he was the number one guy heading into the national tournament, and he did not end with a national title. Yeah. We'll start with the one that's fresh on everyone's minds, the 2023 national championships, in which he was the number one seed going in, undefeated, I believe, right? Undefeated.
22-0.
And then he gets to the finals. He faces Keegan O'Toole for the third time of the season. He had pinned him and beaten him in their previous two matchups. And what does he do? He loses in the finals.
Yeah, that's how that played out.
Yeah, it was everyone always says, it's tough to beat a guy multiple times. And a lot of people, Keegan O'Toole fans, are like, I wish he lost one of those earlier. That way he could have, felt like the pressure wasn't on him to win it when it most mattered. My opinion is, and this might be controversial to some of you guys out there, Keegan is a great wrestler. Obviously going to be a multiple-time champion, already is. But with David Carr, if he beat Keegan O'Toole in the third matchup for the national title, it would have been the best season. And losing makes him the best season to not win a national title. So
it's a bold statement.
It is a bold statement. So like Jack was saying, David Carr was 22-0 coming into the national championship. He'd already beaten Keegan O'Toole twice, including a pin. And I know some of the Mizzou fans out there are going to say, well, it was an overtime pin. And it was a super close match. That's why it went to overtime. Yes, but it's still a pin. And there's not going to be an asterisk next to the scoreboard. Be like, well, it was overtime. A pin is a pin, and it's going to happen even in overtime. And it's still worth the same amount of points. And regardless, even if it wasn't a pin, he still won. Even if it was by points, let's just say. That's still two times in the same season he's defeated the reigning national champion. David Carr had a pretty good win percentage, bonus rate percentage. I mean, he had a little bit north of 50% coming to the national title match. He had over 5 pins. Flow Wrestling gave him a dominance score of 4.13, and in their own rankings as of March 9th, he was the only guy ranked behind Spencer Lee. So Spencer Lee was number 1, David Carr number 2, Mason Parris number 3.
For the Hodge, you mean?
For the Hodge, yeah, exactly.
So you think if he wins that title match against Keegan O'Toole, he wins the Hodge?
I do. I think that if David Carr, if Spencer Lee's match did exactly the same, where he lost in the semis, I think David Carr wins the Hodge if he beats Keegan O'Toole.
Over Mason Parris.
Over Mason Parris.
I mean, I think you do have an argument there that he definitely would be in contention for it.
Yeah. I mean, so in Flo's own words, they said, David Carr doubled down on his 5-point victory over Keegan O'Toole with a pin over him in the Big 12 finals. And they said, his bonus stats maybe aren't as high as others, like Mason Parris, but no one else in this NCAA tournament is pinning national champions. David Carr is the only guy doing it.
That's actually a good point.
While you can say, Mason Parris had a very tough bracket, yeah, but he was expected to beat Greg Kirkby, Cassiope, Wyatt Hendrickson, and none of those guys were returning national champions, let alone national finalists.
Was this Carr's first year at 65?
Yeah, he moved up a weight class as well. He was 157 for the past 2 seasons. He won a title as a freshman, lost to Hunter Willits.
Yeah, Hunter Willits last year.
As like a sophomore, and then came back to take third, and then went up to 165, met Keegan in his own turf, his own home area at 165, beat him 2 out of 3 times, and then just lost the most important match of the year.
Right.
What I'm saying is, if he beats Keegan 3 out of 3 times, no one can deny that he has the best Hodge criteria. 1, undefeated record. 2, solid dominance. His bonus point percentages over 50%. I think at this time it would have been about 53%.
Well, also,
Best,
if you look at the strength of the schedule that he had, like he beat returning All-American Dean Hamidi. He beat freaking Shane Griffith, who was a returning former national champ. Keegan O'Toole, who was the returning champ. He beat Peyton
Monday.
Hall, who was a returning
yeah,
All-American.
he beat Monday too.
Monday.
He beat Quincy Monday, like returning national runner-up. Like his hit list there is pretty impressive.
And that's the third criteria for Hodge is quality of competition. And he's 165 was arguably the toughest weight class this year.
Yeah.
Just by naming some of the guys you named. And the fourth criteria is sportsmanship. And anyone that's ever heard David Carr talk knows that like this guy is the ultimate sportsman. He talks about how the honor to wrestle with Keegan O'Toole, win or lose. After his match didn't go his way, what was he doing? He was out there supporting Aaron Brooks, a great friend of his. This is a guy who has stories of him going to feed the homeless after national championships. I mean, that's ultimate. He's the ultimate sportsman. So I think that he has a really, really good case to have won the Hodge, assuming Spencer Lee lost still, and assuming he reversed his loss to Keegan O'Toole and actually came out with the championship.
Yeah, I mean, he did have a dominant season too, like you've been saying, like especially when you look at all the matchups that he had.
I think, I mean, it's hard for me to. I think Mason Paris was the clear number one of the champions, so it's hard to kind of go back retroactively and say David Carr, if he was a champion, would he be in that spot? Because it was kind of a 3-horse race between Paris, Strachey, and Alirez, in my opinion.
Yeah, I remember that being the case, but at the same time, I didn't, in my mind, I was like, why is Strachey in the like top running of this? Like Paris and Alirez had, I feel like, more dominant seasons, and then if you go from the sportsmanship aspects, it's hard to say that Strachey is the picture of sportsmanship.
Well, I mean, he had a pin in the final match.
Yeah, pretty dominant.
I mean, yes, that's a pin. It's a pin, and you can't argue that it's not a pin. But the guy did roll himself to his back.
Pin's a pin. We were just saying that David Carr gets a pin in overtime. Pin's a pin.
I think that Strachey willed it to happen. He was such a good wrestler that he made Mikey Labs just go to his back with his mental state.
The only thing I don't like about David Carr was that during one of his matches, I think it was against O'Toole, he was doing like this fancy footwork type of thing.
Oh yeah, the same thing.
He was like dancing around.
But that was the match he lost.
I don't know if that was that was the finals match.
I think that was the finals.
It seemed kind of showboaty to me. It definitely goes against like his actual character, but when I watched that, I was like, "What is this guy doing?" Like, he's just trying to show off.
Done that too.
It's the same thing that so him and RBY. I mean, David Carr is an honorary Penn State member. Let's just put it out there. The guy hangs out with them all the time. He loves those guys. He's been on multiple world teams with them. Him and Aaron Brooks are part of it.
Just imagine had he gone to Penn State
instead of. Yeah.
They kind of need him at
65. There was rumors that he would transfer at one point, but so he was following kind of RBY's footwork, and I remember what you're talking about. And you're like, what is he doing? And I think he did an interview about like why blah blah blah. I think he was like, I was trying to make it tough for him, really try to increase the speed of the match. And Keegan O'Toole was calm, cool, collected. Then he wasn't biting on anything. He was holding the positions he needed to hold. So it didn't really work in his favor, unfortunately. But, you've seen RBY do it. People talk about how fast his feet are, but still not fast enough to beat Vito.
Yeah, no, yeah. Clearly it didn't work out for either one of them this past year. So
it is also pretty crazy to think about David Carr. He only has 2 losses in the past 2 seasons.
Yeah.
And one of those is to Hunter Willits. What?
Beast.
What?
Oregon State legend.
Yeah. He didn't even know did he? Or did he?
I mean, I think there's definitely a case there. I don't necessarily think he's going to win the Hodge if he beats O'Toole, but he might be in the top 3. But there's no doubt about it. He had an incredible season. He knocked off some major hitters along the way.
I would put his season up there with Brent Metcalf's, where he did, dominated throughout the year and then just lost at the worst time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Brent Metcalf, that was worse.
Yeah, I mean, Brent,
from protecting the guy to losing.
Yeah, and then the shove heard around the world, which is funny.
Yeah.
Because guess who David Carr's coach is?
Oh, it's Brent Metcalf.
Brent Metcalf.
Full circle.
It really does come first, so you can't make these things up.
Well, who do you think is some of the best wrestlers to not win an NCAA title? We're looking to make this a series. Who do you want us to see cover next on this kind of series? And drop a comment down below.
Thanks for watching. We are Cactus Wrestling, and we'll see you next time on our next video.